Welcome to the She Said Privacy, He Said Security podcast. Like any good marriage, we will debate, evaluate, and sometimes quarrel about how privacy and security impact business in the 21st century.
Hi, Jody Daniels here. I'm the founder and CEO of Clover Advisors, a certified women's privacy consultancy. I'm a privacy consultant and certified informational privacy professional, providing practical privacy advice to overwhelmed companies.
Oh.
That's your turn.
Thank you very little.
Do you remember who you are?
Maybe.
Okay.
Hello, I am Justin Daniels. I am a shareholder and corporate M&A and tech transaction lawyer at the law firm Baker Donaldson, advising companies in the deployment and scaling of technology. Since data is critical to every transaction, I help clients make informed business decisions while managing data privacy and cybersecurity risk, and when needed, I lead the legal cyber data breach response brigade.
And this episode is brought to you by Wimpy, Clover Advisors. We help companies to comply with data privacy laws and establish customer trust so that they can grow and nurture integrity. We work with companies in a variety of fields, including technology, e-commerce, professional services, and digital media. In short, we use data privacy to transform the way companies do business. Together, we're creating a future where there's greater trust between companies and consumers. To learn more and to check out our best-selling book, Data Reimagined, Building Trust One Bite at a Time, visit redcloveradvisors.com. Well, hello. Should I tell everyone that you ordered me the best chocolate chip cookie cake?
Yes, but it appears my gift has missed the mark.
No, that's not fair. Let's talk about the amazing chocolate chip cookie cake that I had, and that everyone should know it was this lovely cake. I've had 2 slices, and my family ate all of the rest. Very little left over for me, the birthday girl. But that's another conversation, because today we have a very exciting guest today. Are you ready?
Let's do this.
Okay. We have Mark Weinstein, who is a successful tech entrepreneur, board member, and consultant, and one of the visionary inventors of social networking. He is the author of Restoring Our Sanity Online, and he is the inventor of 15 groundbreaking digital advertising patents. Mark has delivered the landmark TED Talk, The Rise of Surveillance Capitalism. He is frequently interviewed and published in major media outlets around the world, and the reality is there's a very long bio. So I highly recommend everyone go to the show notes to make sure you understand Mark's amazing accomplishments. So Mark, we're so excited that you are here with us today.
Thank you, Jody. And, I was promised a slice of chocolate chip cookie cake, but I don't know what happened. It didn't show up in my studio, just saying.
Yes. Well, this is actually a funny story. So on our first date, Justin promised me that if he won his squash tournament, because he was playing that weekend, that I was going to get chocolate chip cookies. And you want to know what? I'm still waiting for those chocolate chip cookies too. They never came that day. Just saying.
Listen, it
seems to be a theme around here.
It's great. And it's great to be here. I'm so honored to be talking to both of you. High integrity, remarkable, human beings, professionals, because the topics we're going to cover today are critically important for everybody, whether you're a kid, a parent, a grandparent, a lawnmower, whatever you're doing while you're listening, sharpen your ears, because this is really the conversation of the day.
Well, we agree. So Justin, kick us off.
So as we get into the conversation of the day, could you tell us, our audience, a little bit about your career journey?
Yeah, and it's interesting because, mobile phones, smartphones weren't invented when I was a kid. But by the time social media was around, I was a grown-up, and my 10-year-old nephew started talking to me about it. And this is in the 90s, everybody, when email, which is the same today, we had email in the 90s. For all of our listeners who may not have been there, we had email in the 90s. It hasn't changed. It's exactly the same. And so it's as ghastly, one-dimensional. You can't really interpret, you don't get as ghastly today as it was then. And I had this conversation in 1997 with my then 10-year-old nephew about, Uncle Marky, wouldn't it be great if we could do X, Y, and Z, because the family, everybody was already working around the world and traveling, and email just wasn't working for us. And I looked at my nephew and I said, listen, I'm going to start 10 minutes in the conversation. I said, I'm starting a new company. We're going to build this thing. We're going to use all this newfangled technology. And I'm going to give you 10% of it. You're going to be our chief kid officer. And I went ahead and I built superfamily.com and superfriends.com, which became PC Magazine top 100 sites in the late 90s, 3 years in a row. And, a lot of people don't even realize, yes, social media was around in the 90s and it was beautiful because the vision was classic. When you're a capitalist entrepreneur, when you come up with an idea, it's always about taking care of the customer. It's like, wow, here's a great idea. People are going to love it. And you're all about serving it, people and making sure they love it. So that's how social media started. It wasn't about surveillance capitalism, wasn't about collecting data, wasn't about spying on people. It was about connecting the world, connecting family and friends, like-minded people, making the world a more harmonious place and staying in touch with everybody you love while they traveled around the world and worked wherever they wanted to work. That's how it starts.
So, Mark, tell us a little bit about where we are now, because you have this book out there, Restoring Our Sanity Online. So tell us a little bit about the book, the inspiration for what prompted it, and what you hope people take away.
So, the rapid iteration of the web, that was Web 1. And then Web 1 blows up in 2001 because the revenue model in Web 1 was get as many members as possible. That's all investors were interested in. All of a sudden, investors were panicked. In 2001, they became interested in money, in revenue, and thousands of companies went out of business, ours including. We had plenty of members, and we were working on our new revenue model. Web 2 was born. Web 2 is the rise of surveillance capitalism. Web 2, the revenue model is born. Google gives birth to it. Facebook gives birth to it. MySpace is there. And of course, we're still in Web 2, everybody, just in case you're wondering, well, how long does Web 2 last? Web 2 lasts, it's still going on. It's surveillance capitalism, where your data is monetized, where you are targeted, manipulated, your opinions, your purchases, your thoughts, your medical records, everything is fair game for what I call the massive data ecosystem. And then there's a movement to Web 3, which is blockchain, cryptocurrency, decentralized data, which is important, by the way. We'll talk about that. But so where we are, the reason, so in Web 2, I started a new company, MeWe, M-E-W-E. MeWe still exists. MeWe had a privacy bill of rights. There was no targeting, no newsfeed manipulation, no algorithm studying you, no data packet on you. And Meta, as there's an antitrust case right now, massively interfered with MeWe, as Meta did with many other companies. This is when they were Facebook, of course. Now Facebook is a division of Meta. So here's where we are. 4 years ago, I left MeWe. MeWe, as I said, still exists, and MeWe has ported into Web3 under a different management team. And I endeavored to take 3 years to write basically the prescription, the formula for how we can fix social media, how we can take care of our kids in critical thinking, how we can get rid of bots and trolls, how we can really serve creators, how we can empower all users to have revenue shares, because your engagement as a member of a site is what generates revenue for the site. Now, I in the book, I talk about something called Web 4. I also tell a boatload of great stories, stories from the trenches, because I'm the only person, the only entrepreneur, the only executive who's come from the trenches from a highly ethical perspective and tells the stories about how this all evolved. And also there's one interesting little chapter in the book that I really love, which is that the movement of big agriculture, big energy, and big tech from free market capitalism to monopolism. All three segments follow the same pattern, and how we can disrupt that. By the way, this is the perfect marriage of democracy and capitalism. Free market capitalism is what makes things work. And right now, we're kind of stuck with monopolies and social media, etc.
I have lots of thoughts, and Justin, I know you did too, but it was interesting to hear you talk about Web 4, because years ago, people were talking about Web 3, And now I don't feel like anyone talks about Web 3. Are we going to skip over Web 3 and just move to Web 4?
You know, that's such a good question. I have 3 chapters in my book that debunk Web 3 because first there was the promise of Web 3, and everybody, the promise of Web 3 was, okay, we're going to disrupt the metas. We're going to disrupt. We're going to get our data back. We're going to take ownership of our data, ownership of our privacy. We're going to, all these. Now, here's the thing, though. Actually, blockchain connects you. You're always identified if you're using blockchain, and that's why it works so well for financial transactions and things like that. Blockchain is also super slow as an engineering foundation for anything like social media, because social media functions on, you can't even, there's not a number for how many, transactions, how many communications between when you've got, upwards of 50 million plus, and of course, Meta's got 3 billion people. You can't build a social network on blockchain. And the other complete flaw of the Web3 vision was that social media users would be interested in monetizing their relationships. It's a complete misunderstanding of human communication, because Web3 was founded on, well, I'm going to upvote and downvote you, and you're going to get little, fragments of cryptocurrency for doing it because it's founded on cryptocurrencies. And Web3 has actually been around. Companies have been doing this since 2017, and they've either failed or they've stalled with no more than really 1 million users. Because people don't want to commoditize their relationships. We're not on social media to make money in between each other. We're on social media to communicate. So Web3 is a total bust for social media. Blockchain works well for other transactional pieces. Data decentralization is also a good part of what blockchain can do for us, but that's about it. So we need to move. We need to just wipe the slate clean, as I do in the book, and we move into what I call Web 4, which is really a hybrid. So where we get data portability, because data decentralization, if you control your data, everybody, imagine this, and the inventor of the web, Sir Tim Berners-Lee, has invented this. It's functioning, it's ready to go. It's called a pod. So the solid pod that he's invented, so all your data, you control. You control your ID, you control your wallet, you control your data. You can download it from any site once this is in place, because what we need is some regulations around data portability. So once you control your data, then you can decide where you want your data to go. Oh, I want my pictures here, I want my posts here, on Meta, wherever they are. But then if you're unhappy and there's a better company that you prefer, that treats you better, that respects you, that has higher integrity, you say, wait, I'm taking all my stuff off of here and I'm moving over there. The network effect will then be sort of interrupted, because right now people are stuck on Instagram, they're stuck on TikTok, they're stuck on Facebook because of the network effect, in particular on Facebook, where you're connected to your family and friends and everybody's there, and your coworkers, when you're being social with them. It's called the network effect, everybody, or your social graph, your personal social graph. So if you abandon those sites, especially a personal social network like Facebook, everybody else isn't going with you because there's no data portability yet. So this is where the future is. This is where Web 4 goes. You won't be targeted. And if you want to participate in surveillance capitalism, then you will choose that and you will be paid to participate, in other words, to allow people to access your data to target you.
So I want to follow up what Jody was saying about, hey, let's just skip to Web 4 and go back to what you said earlier and maybe talk a little bit more about whether it's Web 4 or the dysfunctional system we have now. Talk a little bit about your prescriptions around how we change the model, be it regulations, education, otherwise, so we can understand where you're coming from on that.
There's a couple of just fundamentals, everybody, simple fundamentals, data portability, and there's something else. Now, as you both know, I've been one of the leaders of the privacy movement for years. When I built MeWe to compete with Facebook, we created a 10-point privacy bill of rights, including back in the day, everybody was using facial recognition. And we said, your face is your business. We don't have facial recognition. We don't aggregate your data. We don't spy on you. We don't do any of this stuff. You do have to follow our strict terms of service. So for the future, we do need some government involvement. We need the Kids Online Safety Act, which has bipartisan support. We need that passed and signed by the president. We need COPPA 2, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which is now updated and modified. We need that passed and signed by the president. And these bills are, you could say they're 85 or 90% perfect, and there may be 10% where they could be updated, but we've got to get these done and then we can update them. So, but also, here's where it becomes more interesting. After all these years as one of the world's leading privacy advocates, I am now supporting user ID verification on social media. And I want you all to hear this. On social media, we still will protect, people can still have pseudonyms. And remember, if you're a whistleblower or you're a marginalized community or person, you're not broadcasting that on social media. We still want to protect those communities. But on social media, for our kids, if we want to get rid of bots and trolls, we want to protect our children, then we've got to have user ID verification. There are countries, Australia is looking at this, Spain is looking at this, in Europe, the whole European community is looking at this because, kids, and I mean kids up to the age of 18, 13 to 18, we want to be strict about, not letting kids on social media unless they're really 13. And then, we want to protect them until they're 18 so that no creep can get access to them. Nobody can boost, content into their news feeds. They're really just talking to their friends. And this also, this will help. Once we get to user ID verification, we can start to get rid of bots and trolls. And my book has a 7-point plan for exactly. It's not complicated to get rid of bots and trolls. Why have we not gotten rid of them? Because they make these sites money. If half of Elon Musk's followers are bots and trolls, which was documented by Time Magazine, then why does he want to get rid of the bots and trolls? They create engagement. They can get blue checks because bots and trolls can be programmed to have credit cards, et cetera. They're all over the web. And why hasn't anybody, Facebook, Meta, Instagram, TikTok, they don't want to get rid of them. So we're just going to have to regulate for, user ID verification so that we can get back to this. Also, by the way, saves democracy. Another key point, because we don't really hate each other in America, but we have been tricked to hate each other by bots and trolls.
So, Mark, when you talk about the regulation part, and I do this myself, how does the idea behind your regulatory solutions work when you're dealing with big tech, who are the richest set of companies and people in human history? And their influence, particularly as I've seen their whole view on AI change, they went from please regulate us to crickets. How do you get around that? It's almost like you need a president like Teddy Roosevelt who is willing to bust the trusts.
Jody, look, there's no question about it. It's an uphill game. However, I am known as, and I like Travis Kelce said this when he was asked, are you a cup half full or cup half empty person? He said, I'm a full cup. So I'm a full cup because we know, and even back in the day of Martin Luther King, when he said the arc of the universe, it tilts towards, positive change. I'm paraphrasing. We just have to keep chipping away. The Kids Online Safety Act exists. It has bipartisan support. I'm hoping Melania Trump will get behind it like she did with the Take It Down Act. And, same thing with COPPA 2. We need some support to protect our kids and you're right, listen, the tech companies, even with the FTC's antitrust cases and the FTC's Google case and Meta, look, they can pay, for more lawyers. Their budgets are massive. The tech companies, they have, billions of dollars in budgeting for lobbyists. This is actually a challenge. It's a challenge for democracy. But we can't throw in the towel. And the fact is, there are gentlemen, people men and women, but there's Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the web, who is hard at work on this. There's people like Woz, and Tim and Woz have also endorsed my book. They say it's a must read, it's a vital read, because the formula is there. It's all doable. This is all coming because technology evolves. So data decentralization is coming anyhow, whether the big companies want it or not, it's coming. User ID verification is coming anyhow, whether big companies want to try and stop it or not, it's coming because we've got to protect our kids, and that's going to win. So there are things that are coming, and then by almost inadvertent coincidence, they will start to interrupt the bots and trolls, which will also help with democracy because it's usually a nefarious entity, a nefarious country, Russia, China, or some other entity that's trying to disrupt our democracy by making us hate each other, where the backbone of democracy is disagreement, everybody. We seem to have forgotten that. That's the backbone of democracy. That's what makes democracy great. We can disagree, and then we can go have a beer together. We can go have our kids play sports together. It's like, that's normal. Then we go to the ballot box and we vote. So, Jody, I am very much, this may take 5 to 10 years instead of happening tomorrow, but we are on the right path.
For people listening who might just be people and not the company, what do you suggest that people do now, either to protect themselves, protect their kids, or to help move to this next evolution?
And that's a great question. And I think, Justin, I've been calling you Jody. So,
there's a reason why it always says Jody Daniels. I'm being discriminated against. Mark, you're hired.
For everybody who's listening, under Justin's image is Jody's name somehow when the podcast started, and I'm just not thinking. I'm just calling him Jody. So, listen, there's some fundamentals, and the book, every chapter has, here's what you can do right now, because this is not pie in the sky. And, some things are pretty simple. Look, a great example, going back to Justin's thread there, whole school systems are banning phones in schools. Now, we know tech companies don't want that. They depend on the whole feeder system from the teenagers, being hooked on their platforms for countless hours every day. So that's already happening. So we have that. And what we need to do now is people, number one is at home. Your kids, if they're, and you too, it's like lock up your phone. The rules of good sleep are don't bring your phone into the bedroom. So the rules of family really are, whatever time is bedtime, everybody's phone is downstairs somewhere, preferably in a secure area if need be, if the kids won't, adhere to the rule. But remember, kids do what you do, not what you say. So if there's no phones at the dinner table, then there's no phones at the dinner table. If there's no phones while we're doing homework, then there's no phones while we're doing homework. If there's no phones after 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock and they're locked up and everybody's just charging, and that's the rule of the family, then that's the rule of the family. Parents, whatever you do, your kids are going to do too. Now, we use our phones differently as parents than kids because we use them for work. That's a distinction. They're not using their phones for schoolwork as much as they're using their computers, and that's different. So but computers are shut down because, of course, they have an iPad and they have an iPhone. They're going to be able to, keep using their computer in their bedroom instead of their phone. So no gaming the system. We want to just have some simple, common sense. And the other thing is, parents, we've got to teach our kids what critical thinking is, and we can't depend on the school systems anymore, because this is way beyond. Listen, when we were kids, I will just say for everybody, the three of us are old enough that we didn't have an iPhone when we were 15. So, but even when we were 15, advertisers knew that up until you were 14, through 13, you believed anything you saw on television or heard on radio that was an ad or a magazine. You believed it was telling the truth. So now here we have kids on social media, kids on YouTube, kids on TikTok, kids everywhere, and they're believing everything they're seeing. So what we need to do today is really look at things with our kids, see what they're looking at, and have conversations with them and teach them how to critically think better than ever.
One of your favorite phrases?
Well, and I think when Mark says that, now we get into the conversation of, Mark, as you talk about Web4, you talk about this decentralization of data, but now you have artificial intelligence. And I just saw an article today I was reading about how it's just basically gone viral. The president uses deepfakes, everyone uses deepfakes. And to me, one of the biggest issues I have with AI is how it will deaden people's critical thinking skills because the AI said it must be right, or I can just do that. So how do you, with all of your background and experience with what you've seen evolve, shoehorn AI into how it impacts this future that you see or would like to have?
So everybody, and thank you, Justin, for a great question. Today, technology is ahead of our understanding of it, our interpretation of it, and certainly ahead of the white-haired guys, men and women, who make the laws in our country. But we do eventually get close to catching up. So one of the things that we've got to look at today with AI, and I've written that there's some very, very simple ways to regulate AI. Number one is to get some regulations in place. And I wrote about this on Fox, and everybody, I'm published everywhere. I am agnostic about the news outlets because I always tell it doesn't matter if there's a political slant to a news outlet. For me, all they want is common sense answers and the truth. I wrote a prescription on how we can regulate AI. One is very simple. We need to have a regulation so we identify AI wherever it is. So if you're using an AI friend to craft, how you're talking to a girl you're interested in or a boy you're interested in, that needs to be flagged. If, you're using AI for research, we need to make sure wherever AI is used. Now, there's a whole new division of AI, this agentic AI, which is also now coming into Hollywood. So, and I went to a presentation 2 weeks ago. You can just create a whole video or a movie using AI in a matter of minutes, and the AI will generate the script, will generate the story, and then you can direct and change it. And the storyline, AI will just do whatever you say. So this is you say, take this point of view. AI is not going to filter that for its ethics or its integrity. So, Justin, you're right. I mean, this is really important. Also, AI, where I'm really concerned about AI is the algorithms that are watching everything that we do are now supercharged by AI. Algorithms have been around for a long time. You could say they were a quasi artificial intelligence because they were learning by watching. AI supercharged algorithms learn so fast about you and how to manipulate you that before your next thought, AI already knows what it's going to be. And AI can manipulate that, can manipulate how you think about an issue, your vote, your purchase decision, your attitude about a certain group of people or a friend. This is terrifying. And what we need to do is get in the way here. And there's also good AI, of course, everybody. We're just not talking about that today, but AI has a lot of incredibly positive possibilities for medical, for work. There are lots of great areas. But this is so far beyond us, and we've really got to create systems to identify where AI is being used in our lives. And so we're going to have to get there. Justin, we're going to have to get there. And I do believe that before humanity is disrupted, we will see in Europe where they're sensitive to regulation. We'll see it in China because they don't want their people manipulated by AI, unless they're using it, the government's using it for, particular propaganda reasons. We're going to see governments who are more powerful than the tech companies step in, or regulatory agencies like GDPR, like the European Commission, who are going to step in. The Australians are probably going to step in. So we're just at the beginning of seeing how this regulation is going to occur.
I can imagine that at a party, you are very popular And people have all kinds of the questions like, what should I be doing right now from a privacy and security point of view? So what would be that one tip you would tell someone at a party that they can do today?
Wow, Jody, listen, that's a loaded question, everybody, because, the one thing that I would say to everybody is just use an encrypted chat. Don't use WhatsApp because, Meta announced several years ago, and I alerted everybody before, this is back in 2016, everybody, that they were going to spy on you and aggregate and get all your data from WhatsApp. The only thing they can't see is the actual conversation, everything else, who you're talking to, where you are, what you're doing, all that stuff. So it's very simple. I say just use texting with your friends. Use an app like Signal if you want encrypted, an encrypted chat, and really get off social media. You can be a viewer, because there's a lot of peer pressure, especially for kids. You might want to watch something interesting on YouTube. That's fine, but just take yourself out of the game. You want to use LinkedIn for your career. That's really important for everybody once you're, like 18 and above. And remember, if you're a young person, everything you do is going to come back. Any company that's looking at hiring you is going to hire AI. They're just going to, their HR department's just going to ask ChatGPT, an advanced version of it, to find everything ever known about you on the web. And they're going to aggregate that, and they're going to look at it, and they're going to make a decision on whether they'll even interview you based on that. So have fun with your friends in real life. Ask them not to stick pictures of you in compromised situations anywhere, and get off social media as a participant.
Thank you for sharing.
So, Mark, when you're not writing best-selling books, being a media voice, what do you like to do for fun?
I have a website, everybody, markweinsteininventor.com. By the way, the digital advertising patents that I have, because it was mentioned at the beginning, those are anonymizing. So back in the day when all these companies were looking at how can we get patents on stealing and getting everybody's data, I was looking at how can we give you a personalized ad that completely anonymizes you. So the company that's serving the ad, the web company, the marketing company that's paying to have that ad served to you, paying the web company, how can you be anonymized every step of the way? So that's what my patent portfolio is about, protecting our privacy. But, look, I like to get on, I like fast cars, like to race cars where I can, as a hobby. I'm an athlete. I'm still an athlete. Love to swim, love to coach teams. But listen, any of you who have kids, your life, outside of work really becomes, your kids' lives. So, I'm the daddy chauffeur, and all that good stuff. So, I haven't seen a movie in a long time. Let's put it that way.
Well, we're so glad that you could join us today. If people would like to connect with you, where is the best place that they should go?
So you can email me, mark@restoretheweb.com, Mark, M-A-R-K, @restoretheweb.com. You can go to my website, markweinsteininventor.com, and snoop around and then send me a message if you want. Also on LinkedIn, you can, message me there. And the book, Restoring Our Sanity Online, you can see in the background if you have video on. It's available wherever books are sold. It was in all the airport stores for nearly the year. It's a 2025 copyright. And it's look, it's not a thick read. People think, I'm going to buy a 400-page book. This is 157 pages of short, punchy chapters with action plans and great stories. How do we get here? Did Facebook really ask everybody in Australia to send them a nude picture of themselves? The answer is yes. You're going to read stories that are just jaw-dropping about, how this all evolved from the 1990s to today and where we are, and then how do we get to where we want to get to. Also, if you're an entrepreneur, there are tons of ideas in the book for new companies that the world is ready for. So have a good time with it. If you want me to come speak somewhere, to your class or, universities or, your company on best practices, I'm happy to do so. Thank you, everybody.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mark.
It's my pleasure. You guys are great.
Thanks for listening to the She Said Privacy, He Said Security podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes and check us out on LinkedIn. See you next time.